StyledHabitat. You guys are the inspiration for me.
With 3 kids under the age of 6.
Wow.
Wow.
My major was interior
That's
architecture.
inspiring.
It was scary at the time because I was an adult student going back. But I think when you have a drive and a passion for something, it kind of keeps you going.
You have a very unique style. What is it that inspires, these unique creations?
If I would say there's one philosophy that is the thread that ties all our projects together, it would be the tension between restrained, understated elegance and sensual aesthetic and the warmth of belonging. I understand context and history and sort of the functionality.
How do you approach so many different projects?
There's always a need for an experience within the space, and I feel like that's how clients come to us. And just like anybody in the design world, we want to be challenged, we want to be excited. I'm more excited about the unlived chapters of my life and the brand as well.
Hello, hi Shad.
Hi Valeria, how are you?
Good, how was your weekend?
My weekend was full of experience. I learned a lot this week.
That's great.
It was not too bad this week actually. How was your? I know you went to Ziggy. I went last week, and this week you went.
I had an amazing weekend because I went to Ziggy Bay and had this beautiful yoga retreat with our teacher Laura. It was such a peaceful, nice moment to just relax.
Amazing.
And
Great.
think.
Now
pray.
you're back to
Now
Dubai
back to-
and the traffic and
Exactly.
everything that we're going through now. Today we have a very special guest. I love this studio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have our dear friend and very talented designer, Rabah Saeid, founder and creative director of StyledHabitat. And Rabah has made a huge mark in design community. And we would like to hear a little bit more about her insights on her design journey, creating beautiful spaces, challenges. So let's dive in.
Yeah, definitely.
Hi, Rabah.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm doing well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good. Are you
Thank
nervous?
you. Very nervous.
Yeah.
Very nervous.
Let's just put it on the table. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
It's gonna be super casual. Don't worry about it. We're talking as friends. Let's forget the rest.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, first of all, for having me on your podcast.
Thank you for coming.
And congrats for doing this, both of you.
Thank
It's
you
very
so much.
exciting
you.
to see what you guys come up with.
Rabah, StyledHabitat. You guys are the inspiration for me.
Oh,
And for
thank
me.
you.
Yeah,
Thank you
definitely.
so much.
Yeah.
I love what you guys are doing, and I would want to know a little bit more if we can deep dive about what's your guys' inspiration. How do you get to where you are? Tell us a little bit about
About your journey
the journey about
into design.
Yeah,
Well, it's a very long story.
yeah.
I hope you both
We
have
like long
time.
stories.
We are
We're ready.
First of all, I'm a Sudanese interior designer. I moved here in Dubai in 2012. But if I take you from the beginning, I'm the youngest of 4 in my family. Grew up in Sudan to 2 working parents, very intellectual parents. No one in my family comes from the creative background. I recall growing up with, very passionate debates around the dinner table about political issues, social issues. And my parents always hosted a very colorful group of people, whether it's poets, politicians, artists. So that was sort of the atmosphere that I grew up in. My mother was always very resourceful. She's always had this eye to moving things around the house and finding creative ways to host people. It's very interesting how you grow up and things that you think are very far removed from who you are, that later on in life kind of
They
become the blueprint to how you, go about your life. The youngest of 4 was a very good student in school. And as most people know in this side of the world, when you're good at school, you grow up hearing, oh, you're going to grow up and be a doctor one day or an engineer.
Yeah, that's
And
very
I
common.
was very much sort of subscribed to that narrative, if you will. And I very much pursued that in school, and I had my eyes on that as my main goal. And all these dreams and all these goals went out the door right after graduation when I met my now husband. To the horror of my family, being the youngest of four, and coming in one day and saying, so yeah, I'm not going to pursue medical degree and I'm going to get married. I remember my mom pleading with me for months at a time to not do that. But I had my heart set on that's what I wanted to do. And I did. And in 96, I moved to the US right after high school. And I was very much in love and very much excited and with this new idea and new adventure that I'm going to start this new life of mine. I was very much looking forward to it all, but more importantly, to the new sense of independence that I would have. Yeah. When I moved to the US, I was overwhelmed with the number of options I had as a major in university. We are far more limited, I believe, at the time in Sudan with the choices of majors we could do, at least what I was exposed to at the time. I'm going to tell you a silly story.
Tell us. We love silly stories.
I always describe my experience in America and with choices, like the cereal aisle analogy, I call it. And that's because growing up in Sudan, we only had maybe 1 or 2 or 3 max of cereal choices. So we had like cornflakes, Honey Nut Cheerios. That's it.
The classic one.
Yeah, the classic. So that's all I got to see growing up. And here I am, I moved to America. And cereal in America is an aisle on its own.
Yeah.
I mean, you have everything. And for most people that grow up around that, they don't understand that many level of choices is rather overwhelming to some. And that's how I felt about my degree in a way. I felt like pursuing medicine wasn't a priority for me anymore. And I wanted to know what I like, what I'm into, what I can actually kind of incorporate in my new life. And I decided to enroll into school as an undeclared major, which basically it allows me for 2 years to go to school, taking all the generic classes without declaring what major I was going to be pursuing. And so I did. I finished my first year and I was still just as lost, not knowing what is it that I wanted to go into. And soon after my first year of university, I was pregnant with my first, which is my daughter. And that meant that I was like, kind of found an exciting excuse to stop studying and putting that pressure on myself on declaring my major. We were also very young as a couple, and we were very fortunate to be able to purchase our first house. And as any young mom would tell you, you go through that nesting period of wanting to, put your house together. And I was faced with those decisions to make choices about the finishes and the pieces in the house and the colors. And yet it was a very exciting time for me. And sort of like I was responsible for these choices in a way. But yet it didn't cross my mind that that was something I would want to study, because I think it was part of my naivety that I didn't even know this career existed. And so I had my daughter, and very quickly, the feeling of restlessness started to settle in of what's next, who am I? It was also a very isolating time for me because I didn't have a lot of 22-year-olds or 23-year-olds with babies at the time.
Right.
And I felt a little bit disconnected from my surroundings in a way that I couldn't really connect with people. People my age, wasn't their priorities, how to put a house together or to take care of a baby. And that time was rather very difficult for me. but I nonetheless sort of started to try to get excited about my home and learning how to cook and learning how to host and obsessing about trying things and changing things around the house, putting tablescapes together, hosting dinner parties, and
Nice.
spending hours,
Inspired
putting
by
them
your
Yeah.
mom. Inspired by
By
your
your
mom,
mom.
maybe.
yeah, in a way. I was really longing for that sense of home and community in a way. And so around that time in America, there was this surge of sort of home improvement shows on TV, and this sort of it was during daytime segments in shows. There was all these like channels popping up and sort of like opening our eyes to home transformation. And some of them were super cheesy, and some of them were really kind of
I watched a
interesting.
few of those in the past.
And there was one particular show that resonated with me a great deal. It was called Top Design. And I remember it was in the Bravo channel. And one of some of the judges in the show was Jonathan Adler, Kelly Wessler, and Margaret Russell. And that was the most transformative like show for me. I just was like, what? Like this can actually, this
that
is
is
a
it.
career,
Yeah.
and this is people who do this. And I got to see all sorts of eclectic taste and styles. But the interesting thing was these heavyweight designers brought a lens of sophistication and knowledge behind their critiques to the competition that was held on the show. And I remember around that time, I was very kind of like intrigued about this major and what does this career looks like, because I was aware of architecture, but I wasn't aware of interior design and what makes interior design different than interior decorating and so on. So I decided to enroll back into school. But because of my young daughter, and I still wanted to be her main caretaker, I only enrolled in school as a part-time student, and I sometimes would go to night school just to be able to manage, taking care of her. And I was alone in the US. I had no family members around to help. So super excited, went back. I finally figured out, okay, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. This is what I have to offer the world. And I was just super excited about that. And very soon after, I had my second and my third child.
Oh, wow.
So very fast, right on top of each
That's
other.
brave.
I had Omar, and then I had Kareem. My boys are 1 year apart, so which meant the education had to take a back seat, and I focused on having the boys. And so fast forward, I think Kareem was 2 at the time when I decided to finally carve out time and make going back to school a priority. And I enrolled back to school full time with 3 kids under the age of 6.
Wow.
Wow.
My major was interior
That's
architecture.
inspiring.
And so, even though it was scary at the time because I was an adult student going back, I had 3 children, and here I am entering school with kids that are 17, 18.
Yeah.
And I was like a world apart from these people. I was a bit nervous at the beginning and a bit like sort of, like...
Do I need it? Yeah.
I guess the question of do I need it always comes, but I think wanting my own voice in the world and wanting a degree has always been something that I...
On the back of your mind.
Yeah, I really wanted it. It's not because I needed it, but I really wanted it. And I really can't take, the credit for everything that happened in my life. I'm a very fortunate person because I have a great ecosystem around me. I have an incredibly supportive husband. I have, family and extended family that are supportive. The university I went to, the professors were just excited to have an adult student part of the group. I had a voice, I had an opinion. If you know me, you know I have an opinion.
Yeah, we do know.
I'm very good at giving unsolicited advice. I went to school, and of course, I mean, not to miss, I think all of us working moms today and young moms, we cannot do what we do without the help that we could afford to bring into our homes that help us sort of take care of our children in order for us to do what we do every day. And I had 2 experiences with caretakers in my life, and I can tell you that without them and the trust I had with them and you know, and the support of my family and my husband, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be the student that I went to school and had that, all of that.
I think we all can relate to that for sure.
I mean, it's very common here.
Yes, especially in the region.
In this region, to have, you know, help with family and with kids, but maybe not as much in the US. I don't know.
No, not in the US, but
and our profession is very time consuming. Like design is a time consuming, all the studios and everything to study.
Yeah, I mean, I would drop my boys to nursery and make sure I select classes early enough, and then I would go back, pick them up from nursery, drop them home, do nap time, and then go back to school for 1 class, then come back for my daughter, and then put them to bed. And then after bedtime, I would go back to campus to build my models or work to be able to make things work out. Just because I took this upon myself that their life had to be as normal as possible, and I would work around them. And I managed somehow. Sometimes I look back and I don't really know how I did it, but I think when you have a drive and a passion for something, it kind of keeps you going.
I think it's such a great skill as well. I think that could teach you by itself just to how to juggle everything, right?
100%.
Team, work, kids, family, everything at the same time.
Women are good.
Women are
women are good at
multitaskers.
this.
Yeah.
And
Did you ever feel like, oh, I'm just gonna give up? I'm not gonna do this anymore. I don't need this.
I'm not gonna go to the studio.
Why am I doing this to myself? Did you ever feel that way, or did you always have that drive, saying that, you know what, I put myself in this position, I'm gonna do it? Was the drive for design so big, so you felt like this is really what I want to do?
if I'm being 100% honest with you, I don't think I've ever had the feeling of I wanted to give up. But equally, I don't know if the feeling was drive was bigger than me, that I wanted to keep going. It was more of a personal sort of goal of this is what makes me excited. This is what makes me passionate. I wake up wanting to do this. So it was the one area of my life where I felt this is where I found my voice. And finding that gave me so much sense of confidence and sort of gave me a sense of direction as well. And I think as a young mom, that was the most important thing for me at the time. And I mean, fast forward in 2011, I graduated, top of my class, summa cum laude. Very proud of that.
Wow.
So, and I'm proud of it, not for the academic achievement. I'm proud of it because I did it given my circumstances.
For yourself,
You know, and the fact that also I was able to graduate and my kids got to see me trying to juggle being a student. And even though they were very young at the time and they might have not, you know, knew all the time what it was all about, just the fact that they were witnessing my journey was very important to me. So graduated in 2011 and started my career in the US. I was very fortunate in working with smaller studios. We worked in high-end residential, historical properties, high-rise buildings, and multifamily development. And that was before I moved here in 2012 and started my kind of journey in Dubai. So that's a little bit of a background about my story.
Wow, I love this
Amazing.
story.
Where in the US was the whole
Experience?
Yeah.
Houston, Texas.
Houston, Texas?
Yes.
You don't have the accent.
No, I don't. And I'm not a Republican either.
So the journey took you to Dubai, and how come? How come Dubai?
My husband works in oil and gas, hence Houston, Texas. And so with his job, we moved in 2012 here. We came, and I was very skeptical of the idea of living in Dubai. I could only compare Dubai to Las Vegas. You know, it's a great place to come for a weekend or a getaway, but is it a good place to have a family and a young family and to raise your kids here? So we did move, and it took me a while to find my ways and to find my people, if you will. And I actually stayed home for 2 years at the time. I had one of my kids who wasn't, he had some health issues at the time. And I felt the need to stay home with him around that time. And so 2012, and then I started work in 2014.
Where was that?
I first started working in Icon House.
Icon House.
It allowed me to sort of like expand my knowledge with, FF&E, if you will. And we were working at the time in establishing a department for Icon House for interior design. A lot of their clients at the time were coming in, buying these iconic pieces that would sort of define the room. But then they needed help sort of curating the room around those pieces that their high-end clientele were acquiring.
So to help them with design and
Yes.
a little bit like...
And at the time also we had some project overlapping with GAD, Goodwin, Austin and Johnson. And they were working on multiple projects on the creek, Dubai Creek.
Yeah.
And around that time, I shifted to working with GAD. So I moved and I worked with them for a very short time on the Ritz-Carlton Marrakesh. It was a address property, and around 2009, 2010, during the economic crash, it was sold to the Ritz-Carlton. And so we needed to sort of shift the design language rather than more modern way, like the address to a more like a Ritz-Carlton. And so I worked on that project before I decided to kind of stop work. And at the beginning, I decided to stop work because, as you know, with larger organizations, you tend to be given a role within the design team.
Yeah.
And that becomes your role.
Yeah.
And I felt more curious and more excited about learning about the different aspects of the design and the stages of a project. And given my experience in the US, it was mostly with smaller studios. So I kind of dabbled with everything. And I was thirsty for that again.
Yeah, to complete the whole cycle, not just being given. Yeah.
You have a very unique style, I would say. You know, StyledHabitat, like if I see StyledHabitat design, I would be able to say that, oh, well, that looks like StyledHabitat. What is it that inspires, these unique creations?
It's very interesting for me when I hear that because I am not one to say that I advocate for this idea that a designer has to have a signature style. And I know this is a bit controversial in the design world. But I'd rather have the project be the one that informs me of how it needs to be designed. And what I mean by that, I allow the history and the context inform the design decision. If I would say there's one philosophy that is the thread that ties all our projects together, it would be this sort of playing to the tension between restrained understated elegance and sensual aesthetic and the warmth of belonging. Those are things that I always try to capture within a project. And I simply, once I understand context and history and sort of the functionality of the project, I try to imagine a mood or a moment within the space and allow that to sort of create the experience that I want to have in the space. And through this sort of experience or this moment, I allow that to become the muse that defines or shapes the details in the project, and kind of like elevate how people would experience the space, and allowing them to have this moment that they would feel comfortable and connected with, but also let the allure of the space linger with them, well after they leave the space.
Of course.
So,
So you started with a small residential project, and then a bit of a hospitality, and then you decided to establish your own company in 2016.
Yes.
Right. And it's been a great journey for you guys, right?
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, touch the wood.
Yeah.
We touched
Yeah.
it. Yeah. From 2016, you've managed to work on so many different projects, offices, residential. I had a quick look at your portfolio before our... how do you approach so many different projects?
I would say when we first started, we had a split in our portfolio. 60% was residential, and I would say 40% was
Commercial.
And commercial would be offices, health and wellness, F&B, cultural and governmental project. But since 2022, it's been kind of changing. So I would say now 70% is commercial, 30% is residential.
Right.
And commercial is still the same, sort of more or less the same sectors. I think the projects that come our way are always looking for this sort of connecting moment, or people want to feel a certain way within the interior.
Definitely.
Regardless of what the function of the space is, whether it's a personal project, meaning a villa, or it's an F&B or a health and wellness. There's always a need for an experience within the space. And I feel like that's how clients come to us. I'm also very proud of the fact that most of our clients come to us word of mouth.
Right.
And I love that because I feel like it's a filtering system. And I feel like I want to work with great people. I want to work with good people, whether it's the people in my team or the clients that I deal with or the contractors that we work with. It's
ecosystem.
It's an
right?
ecosystem, but it's also a system that we feed off of each other and we challenge each other. And there's a constant dialogue between all these entities. And just like anybody in the design world, we want to be challenged. We want to be excited. We want to be, a little bit outside of our comfort zone, a little bit terrified. Like I usually know a project is a good fit if I am both excited and equally terrified to take the project on.
Interesting.
Because I'm like, you go through this moment of like, holy, how do I do this?
How do I do this?
And I love
exciting
that.
This part is really exciting. Yeah.
And it's very interesting. Like the first office that I personally ever designed on my own was my own studio.
I love that space, I must say. And it's so beautiful. Every time I look at it. Have you been? No.
Yeah, of course I have.
Yeah.
Of course I have.
Yeah.
You could sleep in every room.
Yeah, it's livable. It looks like a livable
But
space.
I think that's the whole, they're unique, So each and every office space room is just, a different story. Your office is amazing. The wallpaper that you guys have.
Thank you. So yeah, we've done the office I've done the office in late 2019, and I remember moving in 2020 and early 2020, and less than 2 months later, COVID hit and we had to close.
Yeah.
But we won for Design Award for Office of the Year at the time for, I believe, Identity Magazine, and same with Faye Health when I was kind of considered for that project. I remember the clients telling me, you're the only one in the 3 contenders with 0 health and wellness background.
Experience.
And I was like, yeah, that's amazing. Actually, I feel like that should be the differentiator between us, and he was looking at me like, what are you talking
What is she
about?
talking about?
And I said, because I don't come with any preconceived notion to the project. I'm going to look at it with a very fresh lens, and I'm going to take it with a different sort of approach.
But also look at that space now compared to.
Yeah.
I also just finished a medical space, so it's a very interesting category in itself.
I never worked in a medical spa, but not a medical.
It's very, very different.
Yeah.
I learned so much. So I'm sure that the whole experience going out from it is like.
Yeah. And so I was extra proud when that project won. And I don't mean to sound braggy, because that's
braggy,
you.
please.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's
fine. That's the place.
We all should be a little bit more braggy, to be honest.
No, what I mean is I'm making this point to say that bringing someone with no experience in a specific field gives them an advantage to look at that and with a very sort of fresh perspective.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that sort of makes things a bit sort of unconventional in a way. And I think that's a great thing. And I'm very grateful for clients that come to me and see something, but they don't know what it is. And then they take that leap of faith and work with us and our team. So I'm very fortunate for that. But like I said, projects that are slightly terrifying are the best type of projects usually.
Amazing. I love that part.
I know it can be a little bit, your whole journey is very, very interesting, but also we wanted to touch a little bit or ask you a little bit about the challenges that you faced as a small business owner, not just as a woman, but generally as a small business owner.
I think entrepreneurs are a special breed of people.
Yeah.
That's number one.
But also I feel like it's a good timing right now for a new emerging young small companies, right? It wasn't like this back then.
No, I don't think. I mean, I think there's a lot of the country is going through, and a lot of sort of red tape that has been made a lot easier now, and the process is a lot more efficient to open a company. But if we talk about the challenges of an entrepreneur, I think all of us designers, we went to school to become designers, but none of us went to school to become business owners.
So true.
And so I feel like by the time I started my business, I did think at the time that I knew what I needed to know as a designer, and I had the skill set to open the business from a design perspective.
Right.
But what I didn't know is, for example, how to write an invoice. I remember Googling how to write an invoice. What do I need to put in an invoice? What is terms and conditions?
Right.
What are the terms and conditions I need in? And I remember doing a lot of copy paste in my process at the beginning. And but ultimately, the biggest challenge as an entrepreneur is to be better conditioned to dealing with the challenges. And what I mean by that, challenges are never going to go away because you're rapidly growing. And I don't mean growth as in growth in size, but rather growth in all aspects of it. Your knowledge, your role, your managing
your team.
So opening the business is the first step, and that takes a lot of courage to take that first step. But right after that first step, it's also equally the easiest step is to open the business.
I agree.
Sustaining a business, finding clients, building a team, retaining a team, building a reputation, listening to the market. Those are all ever growing challenges.
Right.
And you're never going to get to this arrival moment where you say, check.
Easy peasy. It's done.
Let's hang it. It's all done. It's not. That's not going to happen. So I feel like our attitudes, or at least my attitude, the biggest shift that happened to me is accepting and understanding that is the role that I play is continuously evolving and developing. And once I've understood that, I think my attitude towards my business and all the challenges that it comes with has shifted.
I could recognize a lot of what you're saying, obviously. I think any business owner, any entrepreneur would, it always starts in the same way for everyone. You know, we go through more or less the same journey. Who is Rabah 2016 and who is Rabah 2014?
2024.
24.
So 2016 to 2024. Well, 2016, the goal was to have all the time in the world that I needed when I wanted it, you know, because that's what an entrepreneurship is all about. I'm going to own my time. 2024 is a more sort of reasonable person that understands that it is my role to wake up every day and to go to work and to put out fires. And that is the role that I play, to motivate a group of young, talented people that I'm very fortunate to call my teammates, to understand that clients' needs and wants are important, but managing clients' expectation is far more important than anything else in the project. And understanding as an entrepreneur, you're always switched on. Like this idea that I own my time is
doesn't exist anymore.
Doesn't exist.
Yeah. This collaboration that you had recently with Artemis, that was a huge exposure for StyledHabitat. How did this influence, impact your team, your office, your studio?
I mean, no doubt, having the opportunity to showcase what we do in Design Week in Milan was an incredible opportunity.
Yeah.
So we were one of the 6 designers that were selected to exhibit in a 1930s, Milanese apartment.
Right.
And it was a beautiful collaboration because the 6 designers were, I believe, 2 were from the US, 2 were from the UAE, 1 from Ireland, and 1 from Paris. And we all had been pre-assigned rooms within the apartment. And it was an opportunity for each designer to kind of showcase their skill set while curating the rooms with the vast, catalog of products that Artemis represents. And none of the designers knew which other designer is doing what room or what
product
they didn't know. Or aesthetic. Like
cool.
What were you going for? And every designer had to kind of work in their own little silo, if you will, and put this design together with the team from Artemis. So we're rooted in that good design encompasses beauty, functionality, and sort of craftsmanship. And Artemis is everything about craftsmanship and not only the beauty of how the products are made, but also how the process of the products made was. So it was a great marriage between, StyledHabitat and to be, working with Artemis and with the products they had. It was equally a great opportunity because it gave us the ability to showcase what we do in front of a wider audience, right. And to come into the exhibition every day and to see lines lining up to come in to visit the apartment.
And it was the same this year.
Yes, and it continues to grow every year. I think it's great when you not only bring a different group of people together because you get to see what you're capable of and also see what other sort of points of view in really close proximity to one another. So I think that was great, and it continues to influence a lot of what we do in the sense of our team now is very well versed in the understanding of what Artemis represents, and we continue to collaborate with them in all of our ongoing projects as well. So it was an amazing opportunity in 2022.
Amazing.
Sorry, 2023.
23.
Yeah, I saw that recently on your social media. You guys are having a big projects going on with them, right? Are you doing something big with them?
Yes,
Yeah.
right now, yes.
Super curious about seeing what's
Next.
in those boxes.
Yes, the unboxing.
The unboxing is super interesting when it comes to Artemis.
Yes.
I'm a huge fan of Artemis as well, obviously, and it's going to be very interesting to see of these big unboxings and see what it leads to, But tell us a little bit about your up and coming projects.
So a project we're super excited about is the rug company Bungalow, and that's the name that we're giving to this project. It's basically one of the sort of most iconic villas on Al Wasl Road.
It's my favorite villa, and I tried to get that villa for many years, and
it seems
I think that everyone.
I think every designer in Dubai has been.
I didn't know it's you guys. Now I'm.
Now we know who it is.
Now
Who
we
got the
know.
villa?
If it makes you feel any better, 2 years ago I was also, I got a client that pitched the villa for me for an F&B, but it didn't work out, unfortunately. So you can imagine our excitement when the same exact villa came to us 2 years later.
It was meant to.
Yeah, exactly.
You manifested it.
Yeah,
And then,
exactly.
and then an amazing client.
An amazing client, and we have such a great relationship with the rug company, not only as a supplier but as somebody that we collaborated with in 2022 when we did our own design exhibition for Design Week in 2022 for Sauda. So when the client came to us and said, this is the villa, you can understand how, ecstatic everybody at the studio was.
Oh, wow.
So our main goal was to, revive the characteristics of the architecture of the 1970s. The villas were built in the early 1980s, and the architect at the time had gone to the US, to California specifically, and was very much influenced with the Palm Spring mid-century movement at the time. And when he came back to Dubai, he built the villas, and this was his interpretation of that aesthetic. Yeah. And so true to our fashion of how we take a project is let's sort of unveil the history of it and try to understand what was the idea behind it and what was the design decisions when the architect built the villas. And that's what we really tried to do, is to revive that and to amplify the aesthetic of this laid back, glamorous sort of mid-century vibe of the 1970s. And the client was very much, if not more excited than we were about this direction. And we just embarked on the project, and where it's under construction, and we aim to deliver the project before the end of the year. But our excitement is not only for people to have a retail experiential villa. It's in a setting of a sort of a neighborhood home-like experience, but and of course to showcase the legacy of the design of the rug company, but also to be part of this sort of restoration, if you will, of the villa, and to be part of this sort of creative hub that's going to be at the heart of Jumeirah. So we're super excited about the project.
I love this area.
What a project.
Yeah.
It's a prime location as well.
It is.
Yes.
It's definitely a prime location.
And the developer as well, ARM and Huna Living is been super supportive throughout this process, and we are so excited that all parties involved are kind of championing behind the same goal of bringing this villa back to life.
Amazing.
That's so exciting. We're looking forward.
Yeah.
So that leads to our next question. What is StyledHabitat plans for the next 5 years, for the future? Any projects you guys would like to take on board? Anything you want to expand? What's next?
I always say I'm more excited about the unlived chapters of my life and the brand as well. again, I would go back to something I said earlier, which is I hope the projects that keep coming our way are both exciting, thrilling, and slightly terrifying things that I haven't worked on before. And to continue to work with this great, amazing group of people that I work with and share a space with. I'm very fortunate to come, every day and spend more time in my studio than with my own family, with an amazing group of people. Every person that is present, or even that I've worked with in the past and had to leave, I give them so much gratitude and salute for what they helped me build, because every imprint they've made in the company is been so important, but also kept elevating the brand and kept elevating what we're building on day-to-day basis. And I can't wait to what the current group of team members I have and the new group of team members that I would possibly have in the future how they would impact the business. I also feel like product design is a natural evolution to what we do. And product design with brands that we collaborate with is sort of, I can feel that it's in the works, it's happening.
I definitely see you doing that. Yeah.
And I feel like it's a natural progression to what we are doing and the brands we work with as well.
Yeah, that's
what
exciting.
would one furniture piece be that StyledHabitat would take up on? That you see yourself?
That would have to be something you need to wait and see when it
I
gets
knew
launched.
it.
Suspense, guys.
Yes.
Amazing. Well, you guys are nothing but a powerhouse.
An inspiration.
So,
Thank you.
inspiration. So, our previous guests will ask a question for an up-and-coming guest for the next episode. And our previous guests were asking the question, if you or your, let's say, studio now would be a soundtrack, what soundtrack would you guys be?
I want to say, let's answer for the studio, because I think my ears are a little bit not what most people would expect that I would be listening
like
to.
heavy metal.
No, not heavy metal. But for the studio, I would have to say, easy jazz. That would be a good soundtrack to. That's what we play in the studio most of the time. We start off the day usually with classical music for the first hour, because I believe it primes your brain for creativity and kind of resets you. But then for the rest of the day, we typically play easy jazz around the studio. And I would say that's very much who we are as a brand and how I see us.
Yeah. That suits you.
Yeah.
Right.
Now I want to hear what she would put her own soundtrack in. Is it R&B?
Probably.
Probably, yeah.
Yes.
Amazing. Afrobeat.
Yes.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Very cool. So what would be the question you would like to ask our next guest? Anything that comes to your mind?
What is their favorite design piece, iconic design piece, and why?
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah. Great question. Thank you so much, Rabah, for coming today. Thank
Yeah,
you
of
for
course.
your time.
I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
Was it?
No, it's okay. I got through it.
We're very happy that you came
Super
and
happy.
shared your insights
Super
with
happy.
us, really.
Thank you so much for
Thank you.
inviting
Thank
me.
you. Really appreciate it.